We are 5 years away from entering the 21st century. Humankind stands on the edge of the interactive age. You have come a long way. But are you ready for the future? Sega Saturn. It's how you play the game.
Ever since the launch of the Xbox Series X and S, running emulators on your home console has been a viable option, and in this video we're going to take a look at Sega Saturn Emulation on the Series S. The system used to be difficult to emulate, but we've seen a lot of strides over the years. How do the options stack up on the Series S? Let's dive in and find out. First thing to get out of the way, this is not a video on how to set up Saturn Emulation on your Xbox. There are a handful of steps involved that are beyond the scope of this video. Instead, I'm going to look over the state of the emulation on Xbox to help you decide if it's worth setting up. Also, while Microsoft has not punished anyone for using emulators, I would recommend using a secondary dummy account just in case. The app we're checking out is RetroArch, which is a front end to access a collection of emulator cores. Today we're focusing on two Saturn emulator cores, Yabasanshiro and Beetle Saturn. Yabasanshiro is a fork of Yabause, which is also available as an option. We won't really be looking at Yabause though, as it does not offer any options to enhance games while having similar compatibility issues we'll soon see in Yabasanshiro. We'll go over the good parts of this emulator first. Yabasanshiro is the only core that offers any option for resolution enhancements on the Xbox version of RetroArch. Bumping the resolution to 1080p or 4K certainly helps clean up the image quality, especially in the interlaced output that's very obvious in the games using the Saturn's high resolution mode. While it's true that these older titles don't scale nearly as well to higher resolutions as more modern titles, the cleaner picture does help appreciate the art direction used by the developers. Unfortunately, you can only take advantage of this benefit if you don't run into any compatibility issues on the emulator. In my testing, I've run into a wide range of problems, including gamma problems in Burning Rangers, textures not displaying correctly in Die Hard Arcade, games like Wipeout just not loading past the start screen, and what I can best describe as polygons not sorting correctly in multiple titles such as Sega Rally Championship and Tomb Raider. Last Bronx presented a rather weird graphical error. At first I thought the game was looking pretty good, but it wasn't long before I noticed something odd. While the emulator did a decent job cleaning up the image quality, it also renders the models semi-transparent. This is especially noticeable during the victory screens where the fighters take up more of the screen and you can clearly see the patterns of the background through the character. Even with this issue, I still think using this core is a good way to play Last Bronx, and wouldn't be surprised if many people prefer the slight transparent issue over the horrible interlaced artifacts when rendering the game at native resolutions. As for games that do look and run great on Yabasanshiro, Panzer Dragoon Zwei and Panzer Dragoon Saga both look beautiful at higher resolutions, and still play great to this very day. Zwei is one of my favorite rail shooters, while Saga is a timeless classic and should be played if you're an RPG fan. Virtual On also looked and ran great on the core. This overlooked title is still a lot of fun to play with its fast action and varied mech designs. Virtua Fighter 2 and Virtua Cop are two more arcade ports that look great on this emulator. We don't see any semi-transparent characters in Virtua Fighter 2, and while the performance isn't perfect, the few stutters I ran into didn't hurt the experience. Virtua Cop is especially impressive in my opinion. The clean and simple art direction looks great at higher resolutions. Shame we can't use a light gun though. Shining Force 3 is another classic that still holds up well. The simple models during the battle sequences scale up nicely, and overall the game can almost pass as a modern indie strategy RPG with the retro art direction. Overall, Tapas and Shiro can offer some nice benefits to cleaning up the picture quality if a game runs properly. Unfortunately, more often than not, I did run into an issue, and even if the game loaded up fine, I did run into crashes here and there. This is where Beetle Saturn comes into the picture. This emulator is for those wanting a more accurate and stable experience. This part of the video is going to be more straightforward since I didn't run into any compatibility issues with any of the games I've tested. Burning Rangers was one of the first games I tried, and it looked great without any gamma issues. Sonic Team really pushed the Saturn hard with their final game, and it's still enjoyable today if you can get used to the controls. Wipeout loaded without any issues and played exactly like I remembered. Playing this game again brought back so many memories, and it's great to have an easy way to play it on modern displays. Die Hard Arcade ran without any texture issues and is still an excellent beat-em-up style game. This game has a certain charm that is rarely seen today and is perfect for couch co-op with a friend. Sega Rally rendered correctly and is still a blast to play. I ended up getting caught up in the fun, and it was easy to lose track of time. The game is a true classic, and I really wish Sega would bring back this series. Tomb Raider ran without any seams between the polygons found on Yaba Senshiro. Playing through the first few levels was a nostalgic trip and makes me wish the series went back to focusing on exploring tombs and mainly worrying about wild animals and traps. Last Bronx works great and without any semi-transparent character models. Of all the fighters on the Saturn, this is easily the most impressive in my opinion with the attempt to use fake 3D backgrounds, which was rare in the 32-bit days. Unfortunately, Tomb Raider and Last Bronx does highlight some drawbacks of this emulator, the limited graphical options. There are basically little to no features to enhance games on Beetle Saturn. There are no settings to raise the resolution or overclock the CPU, and as a result, we see interlaced artifacts in any games running in the Saturn's high-res mode, such as Last Bronx and Virtua Fighter 2. There is an option to enable horizontal blending that attempts to help with the interlacing in games, but this blur effect does little to hide interlacing artifacts in my opinion. The lack of any options to overclock the CPU also means games that had performance issues on the Saturn will also run into performance problems on Beetle Saturn, as we can see in Tomb Raider. Speaking of performance, if you're wondering if games run better on the Series X over the Series S, that doesn't seem to be the case. On the bright side, I ran into no crashes when using this core, and as I highlighted above, every game I loaded just worked. Over the last few years, I've gotten back into Saturn gaming and have been rebuilding my library. With the Series S, I don't have to worry about using an analog to digital converter to play on my HD TV, and this has been a much more convenient way to play those classic titles. The Sega Saturn has gained a level of appreciation that the system unfortunately didn't enjoy during the 5th generation, and there are a number of titles still only playable on that platform. So it's awesome to be able to have a solid way to play these games today and enjoy some truly timeless classics. I hope you've enjoyed this video as I've taken a trip down memory lane exploring Saturn emulation on the Xbox Series consoles.